the comparison of A Small Good Thing and The Bath by Raymond Carver is kind of an odd opportunity to look at the same story, or at least the same events, and see what a difference it makes when you completely compress Carver's original, which is a pretty robust, open-hearted story with lots of, let's say, the milk of human kindness flowing through it. And you turn that story into a sort of minimalist, edgy version, which is his editor, Gordon Lish, did. And then you pretty much just have the details, but you don't have a lot of what makes people human. It's a really unusual thing, and interestingly enough, The Bath was published first because his editor is the one who managed to get it published, and only later did Raymond Carver's original A Small Good Thing get published. So what I like about this is it gives you a good chance to see the same storyline, I should say, because it's not the same story, the same storyline with completely different style and characters and tone and emotional effect. Let me give you an example. Now, both of the stories will have very similar things. There's an introduction, mom's at the store getting the birthday cake, and at the end of that introduction, the boy on his way to school for his birthday gets hit by a car. The next scene is in the hospital. Both stories will have that. And then after a long, long day at the hospital, the husband is going to come home. And while he's home, he gets this menacing call, but he doesn't understand who is making the call. And it's the baker saying, "It's about Scotty. It's about Scotty. Pick up the cake. Pick up the cake." But he doesn't say pick up the cake. He just, anyway. So the baker is calling, and the husband's thinking, what the heck is this? What's going on? So he goes back to the hospital, and they have another long, long stay in the hospital. And then the wife comes home. And as the wife is home, feeding the dog, relaxing for a minute, the phone rings again. And it's the baker again, making that menacing call. And then she goes back to the hospital. There's a longer stay at the hospital. And I'll leave it at that. And the first published version, The Bath, ends with the hospital. And the original version, A Small Good Thing, has this really big-hearted final scene where the couple go and talk to the baker. And to give you an idea of what differences I'm going to want you to look for, I want you to pay attention to how people are characterized. It can be as simple as how they touch each other's hands, the simple things they say to each other. There's a lot of kind of kindness, if you will, in the midst of this horrible situation, woven into A Small Good Thing. And The Bath, it's like it's given some sort of emotional wash where all that kindness is bleached out and you only have the skeleton of events, which is kind of a minimalist style that was maybe popular 40 years ago or 50 years ago. And obviously it's what the editor Gordon Lish wanted. So let me give you an example here. This is the mother. She's at the baker. She's ordering the cake, and the baker says nothing. He just kind of is looking at her, big, kind of, big lunk of a guy. You know, imagine him being about 80 or 100 pounds overweight, kind of jowly, inset eyes, not a lot of smile in him. And in A Small Good Thing, the mother's thoughts are given, and we have Raymond Carver writing, about the baker. He made her feel uncomfortable. She didn't like that. While he was bent over the counter with a pencil in his hand, she studied his coarse features and wondered if he'd done anything else with his life besides be a baker. She was a mother and 33 years old, and it seemed to her that everyone, especially someone the baker's age, a man old enough to be her father, must have children who'd gone through this special time of cakes and birthday parties. There must be that between them, she thought. But he was abrupt with her, not rude, just abrupt. She gave up trying to make friends with him. So you have this really nice moment where the mother is concerned about him and wondering what gives. This poor guy, he's shut down. Didn't he have kids? Doesn't he wake up to this occasion? Has he forgotten how to be a person? He confuses her. But if you look at the bath, you have that same scene, and you don't have the mother's thoughts anymore. You have, he was an older man, the baker, and then you have description of what he's wearing, and then he kept wiping his hands on the front of the apron as he listened to the woman, his wet eyes examining her lips as she studied the samples and talked. He let her take her time. He was in no hurry. The mother's thoughts are completely gone. And that's the difference between the more robust story, A Small Good Thing, which gives you kind of the inner life and the compassion of the characters, and The Bath, Raymond Carver's editor Gordon Lish's idea of what would be a better story. And this was the version that was first published. And you're going to find as you get into the hospital, in The Bath, the hospital staff walk around almost like robots, just coming in, getting some blood, doing this and doing that. But in A Small Good Thing, they're a lot kinder. They say little things that can make all the difference in the world. Telling the kid, what a cutie, my God, I'm sure he's going to be fine. All of that sort of things that you'd hope, somebody in the medical field would have the heart to put people at ease in this really difficult time. And then the husband goes home and the baker calls, but he doesn't know, sure, what's going on. There's a cake that wasn't picked up. This is what the voice on the other end said. What are you saying? The father said, the cake. The voice said, $16. The husband held the receiver against his ear, trying to understand. He said, I don't know anything about that. Don't hand me that, the voice said. The husband hung up the telephone. So it's just kind of gruff and rah, rah, rah. There's a cake. Don't try to get over on me. And even here, that's going to be kind of similar here. That's not going to change with the baker. But then when the husband goes back to the hospital, in the more robust story, you're going to have much more kindness amongst the nursing staff and the doctors. And then the bath, again, they're going to come and go like robots. And then one side scene that really makes for a great comparison is that in the next section, the wife decides to go home after a little bit of discussion. She's finally convinced that she can go home. And on the way out, she bumps into this black family. And what they do is they talk about what's going on with their family. And the wife is really thoughtful. And forgive me, yeah, it's right here. It's about she's going back and she talks to this black family whose son has been knifed something at some crazy party. But even there, in the compressed version, the kind of kindness of the interchange between the black family and this whose son has been knifed, and this poor woman whose boy is now getting into his second or third day in a coma, there's a real certain kindness to it that is brought to life really well in A Small Good Thing, but it doesn't exist at all in The Bath. And the names change, but that's superficial. That's not one of the things that's really changes the soul of the story. But what really does is how these people act to each other, how they recognize each other, how there's a moment, a flash of genuine concern. And then after the mother goes home, and of course the baker has to call again, then they both go back to the hospital, and then I'll leave that open. And then similarly here, the mother returns to the hospital. She immediately checks in on the black family and finds out that the son had died. And then she goes back in to check on her boy. And then after they get home, then there's a kind of a moment of revelation. The baker calls again, and the wife finally realizes what's going on. It's like, oh, I know who it is. It's she calls him the G.D. Baker. And so they go out to confront the baker for calling them during this time of great tension. And it's a very beautiful scene. The baker, who we know is just kind of a gruff, a bad guy, God almighty, what's wrong with this man, suddenly becomes a very, very open-hearted human being. And in The Bath, that scene is missing. And so with the one story, the baker redeems himself in the end. And in the other story, all you get is one last menacing call from the baker. Yes, she said, this is Mrs. Weiss. Is it about Scotty? She said. Scotty, the voice said. It's about Scotty, the voice said. It has to do with Scotty. Yes. And that's the end of the story. And so what you're really looking at here is a difference between probably a story that's written more for the normal heart, A Small Good Thing. This is how feeling people act with each other. And then it's been reduced at the advice of Raymond Carver's editor, Gordon Lish, into this minimalistic thing where the characters have nothing, no connections. It's just a bunch of strangers walking around, bumping into each other like robots. And what I want you to do is compare these stories scene by scene. And that will be the discussion format. I would say, take the smaller one first, read The Bath, it's only a few pages, maybe 6 or 8. Get an idea, break it into scenes, that is the hospital scene, the home scene, the home scene, the hospital scene, the scene with the black family whose boy's been knifed and is in the hospital. Break it into scenes, and then go back and read A Small Good Thing, which will have most all of this, well, it will have all of the same scenes, and then it will add that really robust scene at the end. And the goal of this is to understand that it's not just the story, the what happened-ness of a story, but it's also who the people are and how the author brings them to life. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it kind of opens up what a profound difference there can be in these two tellings of roughly the same events.